The lobby was empty, almost asleep. Only the echo of footsteps and the soft hum of the janitor's mop filled the air. A group of young employees lingered near the doors, laughing too loudly for the quiet night. One of them pointed at the grand piano in the corner, an instrument that looked more like decoration than something anyone dared touch. "Hey, old man," one of them jeered, "why don't you play us a song? Or are you just good at polishing floors?" Their laughter stung, but the janitor kept his head down. His shoes were worn, his hands calloused from years of scrubbing, not applauding. But they wouldn't let it go. "Come on, sit. Show us what you've got. Or are you scared?" Reluctantly, with a sigh that carried years of silence, he walked toward the piano. They expected a joke, maybe a clumsy tune. He sat. His fingers hovered above the keys. For a heartbeat. Nothing. Then sound. Soft at first, hesitant, like a secret escaping. But then it grew. Notes layered into something rich, haunting, beautiful. The marble lobby itself seemed to hold its breath. The laughter faded. The group stared, wide-eyed, silenced by music they never imagined could come from the man with the mop. And in the doorway, a young woman had stopped, her eyes fixed on him. A billionaire's daughter, frozen by a melody that would change everything. But long before this night at the piano, there was a man, a father, and a story stitched together by love and loss. His name was Daniel. Most people only saw him as a janitor who pushed a mop through empty halls. But behind those tired eyes lived 1,000 unspoken dreams. Years ago, Daniel had once believed he was born for music. His fingers moved across piano keys the way a bird moves through the sky, free, alive, unstoppable. He dreamed of concert halls, of applause, of a life where music was not a luxury, but his livelihood. And then life happened. He met a woman, gentle and full of light. She believed in his gift, even when the world didn't. They married, built a small home, and soon their daughter was born, a tiny girl with wide eyes and a laugh that could heal any wound. For a while, life felt almost perfect, but fate has a way of testing hearts. His wife grew sick, and before long, Daniel was left standing at her graveside, holding his daughter's tiny hand. From that day forward, everything changed. Dreams of music? They were tucked away like an old photograph in a drawer. There was only one mission left in his life, raising his daughter and keeping her safe. So he found work where he could, nights as a janitor, long hours scrubbing marble floors and empty office desks. The pay was small, but it was steady. And steady was what a little girl needed. At work, he was invisible. The suits brushed past him as if he were part of the furniture. Some mocked him when they were bored, laughing at his silence, his bent back, his old shoes. Daniel never argued. He knew they didn't see him. They couldn't. They weren't supposed to. But at home, home was different. There, he was not the janitor. He was Daddy. He cooked simple meals, told bedtime stories, and laughed when his daughter made silly faces. And when the house grew quiet, he would sit with her on the floor, showing her how to press her little fingers against the plastic keys of a toy keyboard. "Like this," he whispered one night, guiding her hand. "Soft, gentle. Music is about feeling, not force." She giggled, missing the note, and he laughed with her. For a few minutes, the world outside didn't exist. There was no poverty, no grief, no loneliness. Only two souls and the memory of music that still lived inside him. Have you ever noticed how the smallest joys carry the heaviest weight? A child's laughter can lift a man drowning in sorrow. For Daniel, his daughter's smile was oxygen. Yet behind every smile lay the constant shadow of bills, medical bills, school fees, the endless climb of survival. He often lay awake at night, staring at the cracked ceiling, asking himself if he was enough, if scrubbing floors would ever be enough. But when morning came, he forced himself up, packed his daughter's lunch, and kissed her forehead before work, because giving up was not an option. Still, music never fully died in him. Sometimes, when the offices were empty, he would pause during his shift. His eyes would drift toward the grand piano in the lobby, its glossy surface shining under the dim lights. He'd stand there for a moment, mop in hand, imagining what it would feel like to sit down and let his soul out through those keys. But imagination was all it ever was. He would shake his head, whisper, not anymore, and returned to scrubbing because the world had told him a truth he could not escape. Survival mattered more than dreams. Yet dreams, no matter how deeply buried, have a way of waiting for the right moment to return. And Daniel's dream was waiting, waiting in silence, waiting for the night when the world would finally hear him again. And then came the night that changed everything. Daniel was finishing his shift, mop in hand, when a few employees lingered in the lobby. Their eyes caught him glancing, just for a second, at the grand piano in the corner. "Look at him," one snickered. "Thinks he's Beethoven or something." Another smirked. "Hey, janitor, why didn't you give us a song? We could use a laugh." Daniel lowered his head, hoping they'd lose interest, but their voices grew sharper, pressing like knives. "Come on, don't be shy. Or are you afraid? Can't even touch it?" His hands tightened on the mop. He wanted to walk away, but something inside stopped him. Maybe it was pride. Maybe it was years of silence pressing too heavy on his chest. With quiet steps, he moved toward the piano. The room filled with chuckles, whispers, the scrape of shoes against marble. He sat. His fingers hovered above the keys. For a moment, nothing. His heart pounded. His breath caught. Then he played, soft at first, like a whisper breaking through the night. Then stronger, weaving notes together into something raw and beautiful. Years of pain, love, sacrifice poured out through music. The laughter died. The smirks faded. The lobby fell silent, as though the very walls leaned in to listen. And just beyond the doorway, she stood, the billionaire's daughter, drawn not by wealth, not by power, but by sound, her eyes fixed on the janitor at the piano. Her breath caught as the melody filled the air. She didn't know his name. He didn't know she was watching. But in that moment, both their lives shifted forever. Sometimes, a single song can break open the silence of an entire lifetime. The night after the music, something shifted. Daniel didn't know it, but the song he played had traveled further than the polished marble walls. The heiress couldn't forget it. That melody haunted her, lingered in her ears long after she left the lobby. A sound so raw, so human. It didn't belong to man people dismissed as the janitor. She had to know who he was. The next evening, she returned quietly. She waited until most of the office lights were off, until the building was hushed. There he was again, pushing his cart, gathering trash, invisible as always. She stepped closer. "That was you last night, wasn't it?" The piano. Daniel froze. His first instinct was to deny it, to protect the small piece of himself he had let slip. But her eyes, curious, sincere, made denial useless. "It was nothing," he murmured, turning back to his work. "Nothing." She almost smiled. "That music stopped me in my tracks. People don't call that nothing." Her words embarrassed him, but also warmed him. Praise was something he hadn't felt in years. He nodded politely and went back to scrubbing. But she didn't leave. That was only the beginning. Over the following nights, she returned. Sometimes she brought coffee. Sometimes she only listened, standing near the piano until Daniel, reluctantly, would play again. At first he was stiff, self-conscious, but slowly the music loosened. His hands remembered what his heart never forgot. And every time he played, her eyes softened more. She asked questions about his life, and though he resisted at first, pieces slipped out. The loss of his wife, the daughter he adored, the long nights cleaning so she could go to school. One evening, she whispered, "You've carried so much. And yet, when you play it feels like hope." Daniel swallowed hard. Compliments were harder to bear than insults. Back at work, whispers began. Those who mocked him now treated him differently. Some clapped him on the back, saying, "Didn't know you had that in you, man." Others looked at him with jealousy, muttering behind his back. And then came the phones. One employee had recorded him at the piano that first night. Quietly, the video spread. A janitor playing music that could break your heart. The views weren't massive, but enough to make Daniel uneasy. At home, though, the story was different. His daughter, Lily, had found the clip. Her eyes shone. "Daddy, that's you. You're famous." He chuckled, shaking his head. "Hardly. It's just a silly video." But Lily wouldn't accept that. It's beautiful. You're beautiful when you play. One day, I'll see you on a real stage. Her words pierced him. How could he tell her that stages weren't for men like him? He kissed her forehead instead. Maybe someday, sweetheart. The heiress kept coming. Sometimes Daniel wondered why. Why would someone with everything spend nights with someone who had nothing? One night, he asked, "You could be anywhere in the world. Why here?" She smiled softly. "Because this is the only place I hear truth. Money buys talent. Fame buys noise. But your music comes from somewhere deeper." Daniel turned away, his chest tight. Truth was hard to hear when you buried it so long. And then life struck again. Lily grew sick. Fever, weakness, hospital visits that stretched late into the night. Daniel's world caved in. Bills piled higher. His shifts doubled. Sleep vanished. And still it wasn't enough. One evening, she found him sitting on a bench outside the hospital, his head in his hands. "What happened?" she asked gently. "My daughter," he whispered. She's not well. I don't know how to fix this. I don't know how to give her what she needs." Her heart ached. Without hesitation, she said, "Let me help. I can cover the treatment. Money doesn't." "No." His voice was sharp, louder than he intended. He looked at her, ashamed. "I won't take charity. I won't let her see her father beg." Silence fell between them. Pride and desperation wrestled in his eyes. She nodded slowly. "Then don't take charity. Do something else. Share what you have. Share your music." He frowned. "What are you talking about?" "A concert," she said softly. "A charity event for children's hospitals. You'll play. People will listen. Funds will be raised. Not just for Lily, but for many others too." Daniel shook his head instantly. "That's impossible. I'm no one. I'm just—" "You are not just anything." Her voice cut through his doubt. "You are a father, an artist, a man with a gift the world needs to hear." He stared at her, torn between fear and the faint flicker of hope. At home that night, Lily looked at him with wide, fragile eyes. "Daddy," she whispered, her voice weak from fever. "When you play, it makes the pain smaller. If you can make me feel better, maybe you can help other kids too." Daniel's heart broke. His little girl, teaching him courage he didn't believe he had. He sat in the quiet of their small apartment long after she fell asleep, staring at the dusty sheet music in the drawer. His hands trembled as he touched it. For years, survival had silenced him. But now his daughter's life, her dream of seeing him on stage, it all rested on the one thing he had buried. The question clawed at him. Could he step out of the shadows and let the world hear him again? Sometimes the greatest battles aren't fought on stages or in crowds. Sometimes they're fought in the heart of a tired father, standing at the edge of fear and hope. And Daniel was about to choose. The night of the concert arrived. Daniel stood backstage, palms sweating, heart racing like a trapped bird. All his life, he had belonged to shadows, mops and buckets, silent halls, and empty rooms. Now, for the first time, a spotlight waited for him. He whispered to himself, "I don't belong here." But then his eyes found the front row. There she was, Lily, frail, pale, but smiling wider than he'd seen in months. Her little hands clutched a program with his name printed in bold letters. Daniel Carter, pianist. The sight nearly broke him. A soft voice came from behind. "The heiress. You do belong here. They just don't know it yet." Daniel closed his eyes. He drew in a breath so deep it hurt, then stepped onto stage. The lights were blinding. The crowd was hushed. Dozens of faces stared at him, curious, expectant. Some whispered, "That's a janitor?" He sat at the piano. His fingers hovered, trembling above the keys. For a long moment, silence stretched heavy and unbearable. And then he began to play. At first, the notes were fragile, uncertain. But slowly they gathered strength. A melody rose, weaving pain with beauty, sorrow with hope. Each chord carried the weight of sleepless nights, empty pockets, and broken dreams. Each phrase whispered love too strong to die. Have you ever heard a song that feels like someone's soul being poured out? That was what the audience heard that night. Tears slipped down cheeks. Even those who mocked him before sat frozen, undone by a janitor who played like a man who had lived 1,000 lifetimes. And in the front row, Lily leaned forward, eyes shining, whispering to herself, "That's my daddy." Daniel felt her gaze, and with it, he poured everything he had left into the final movement. His hands flew, his body swayed, the music soaring higher and higher until the last note crashed into silence. For a heartbeat, the world stopped. Then thunder, applause, cheers, people rising to their feet, strangers wiping tears, clapping until their hands ached. Daniel bowed his head, tears burning his own eyes. For the first time in years, he felt seen, not as a janitor, not as invisible, but as himself. Backstage, after the curtain fell, he stood trembling, trying to breathe, and then he felt a presence beside him. It was her, the heiress. Her eyes glistened, her voice barely above a whisper. "Daniel, I've heard music all over the world, but nothing has ever touched me like tonight. You gave them more than notes. You gave them your heart." He shook his head, voice cracking. I just wanted my daughter to see me, to know I tried." She stepped closer, her gaze steady. "She saw you. We all saw you. And I—" Her breath caught, and then the words tumbled out, soft but certain. "Marry me." Daniel froze. The words didn't register at first. What did you say?" "Marry me," she repeated, a trembling smile on her lips. "Because I don't see a janitor. I don't see a man with nothing. I see a father who gave up his dreams for love. I see an artist who can heal the world with music. I see the man I want to stand beside." His throat tightened. Years of loneliness, of burying himself under work and silence, cracked in that moment. He whispered, "But I have nothing to give you." She shook her head. "You've already given everything that matters." Behind them, applause still thundered. In the front row, his daughter's small voice rose above the noise, calling, "Daddy, Daddy." Daniel turned, eyes wet, heart breaking open, and for the first time in so long, he believed it. He wasn't invisible anymore. Sometimes love doesn't arrive dressed in roses and perfection. Sometimes it arrives after years of silence, hidden in music, whispered in the unlikeliest places. And sometimes it arrives with the words that can change a life forever. "Marry me." Life didn't change overnight. There were no golden fountains of money, no instant fairy tales. But something far greater had shifted. Daniel's dignity had been restored. His daughter received the treatment she needed, not because he begged, but because his music inspired generosity. People donated. Concerts followed. Slowly, the man who once scrubbed floors in silence found himself standing before audiences who came not to mock, but to listen. At home, Lily's laughter returned, brighter and stronger. She would sit beside him as he practiced, her small hands pressing notes with him. "Daddy," she'd whisper, "you were always meant for this." And she was right. The heiress never saw him as less. She saw the man he truly was, a father who had given everything for love, and an artist who had buried his gift until the world pulled it out of him again. Together, they built something new, not out of wealth or status, but out of kindness, courage, and a melody that refused to die. Sometimes, the world mocks us into revealing what we try to hide. Sometimes, pain uncovers beauty we didn't know was still inside. And sometimes, the song of a janitor can become a love story the whole world remembers. Because when music is born of sacrifice, it never fades. It only grows stronger, note by note, heart by heart,